A moment. Okay, now just to recapture where we ended up yesterday, we're going to make one more modification. I'm currently in my development environment, and in my development environment, we have added a new view to our database, and we've done this differently comparing to your normal procedure. We first registered a view in database, and then we have created a unique creation object that, instead of describing a new database, works as a mapping to an existing view. And so we've seen this working. We simply registered this as a lookup so far. So this is our view name. We can find it in our database. Oh, sorry, I was searching from views, from tables. And this is a view. And as of now, it has ID, which is essentially a copy of a contact ID. It has name of the person. It has person's birth date, and it has the automatically calculated on view level, on database level, age and days. As of now, we only see this as a lookup. Contact, age and days. And now we will make this usable to our end users. So this calculation is not just in some uh, lookup, but can actually be available to end users. So what we're going to do, we're going to add that column over here. At this time, I cannot do this because I'm lacking a connection. So if I will try to refer to this, what is the name? Contact age in days is the name of the object. Contact age in days. I will fail to find this because in this relations, I am only able to refer to objects that have at least one lookup that would refer to my contact. And this is where it can be a little bit tricky, because if we look in the at our current view, we will actually see that, well, don't we have contact IDs already? Yes, we do. But these are primary keys of a record in this, of a row in this view. And it just so happens that this grid is an exact match to a contact, but this is no reference. So in order to have that reference and be able to use this in no code, we could maybe use this primary key with some coding tools, but everything that can be done with no code should be done with no code. So if we want to add this easily to a list, we need to have a reference. And for that, we need to add a contact, not as a row primary key, but as a foreign key, which calls for an additional action. So I'm back to my view, and I'm going to add a new column to it of a lookup type. And we will call this contact, title, contact. But what we do remember is that this object represent structure. Just to, and I need to refer to contact object as a lookup, obviously. But as we remember, when usually such an action would register a new column, in this specific scenario, this will not work because this object only represents structure of database view. So I need to follow this logic, and I need to first restructure my database. And now, because this is a client, because most of you are using cloud environment, instead of running scripts from here, we're going to modify our existing SQL script to make changes to our view. So here is our contact age in days view. As of now, it only executes formula. And now, let me quickly remind you. So day 3, example of SQL view contact. And this is what you need to add. ID as, and this is important, user contact ID. And it might not be a given. This is something that is managed by Creatio automatically and is easily overlooked when you make changes to database structure directly. For example, if I check my contact object, I will see that, okay, I have Andrew Baker, and Andrew Baker is connected to an account. And let's see this over here. So here is my Andrew Baker, and indeed, he has an employer, company, Acom sample. So this is an account for Andrew Baker. We see this in list view as well. And this is a lookup to an account, so we know it will store the foreign key of the Acom account. And if I look into my configuration, I will find now my contact. It doesn't really matter which version, they will all have accounts. And if I look at account code, it is simply called account. If I look into database though, it is called account ID. This suffix ID is added automatically. So the foreign key column in database will always have this ID suffix. And when you declare new objects, system does this automatically. We will see that in action. But this can be easily overlooked when you are doing this kind of mapping. So we're going to connect to contact where we're using, because this is still from contact, we're going to make an alteration to our existing view, which was still designed from contact, and we will take the contact ID again. This time, we will store this as a reference to a contact, but we will also need to mention this suffix. So back to our script. Comma, next line, ID of a contact. We use ID of a contact twice. One for ID of a view row, second time for ID for user contact lookup value foreign key. Let's save this. Just in case, if you're running this for Postgre, make sure to add double quotes, just like with everywhere else. Back to our configuration. User yacht, scripts. It's uninstalled. We just made modification to it. Let's install this. Now our view is modified. And we have user contact ID. It may seem redundant, but it is not. If you check the values, they are exactly the same. An ID of a view row is the same as ID of this reference. But in this scenario, this is necessary to identify a row. In this case, for this column. In this column, this is necessary to connect to a contact because this is now a foreign key. Now we can modify our object. We will add a new column of a lookup type, and we will call this contact. Prefix contact. And this is where it becomes very important. If I call this contact ID, because usually you would want to carefully copy paste these names into your object to make sure that you are making a proper mapping. If I would copy this Creatio, because this suffix interaction is automated, Creatio would try to map this to a column that is called user contact ID. This happens automatically. So when I'm calling my column user contact, it is mapped to something in database because it's a lookup. In base, it will be mapped to user contact ID. Title contact, lookup contact. Save and publish. Close and we'll refresh our contact list page. And we will now try to use these relations. Contact age in days. Age days. And because this is a one-to-one, any of the aggregation will work. So we can use maximum value. And we will call this just age in days. And now we see those values. So now we finally have something that is usable for a user. It is super fast because executed on database, and you can run more complex executions. But again, this is more of an edge case scenario because you will need to build SQL scripts to maintain your database structure. But it can be good for more complex solutions and easier. It's much easier on your hardware, so it can definitely positively affect your performance. But don't do this just because you know how. Do this when necessary. This is important. First and foremost, Creatio is a no-code platform. And what you need to do is to give clients ownership of the platform. It will be harder for them to comprehend such a view and nearly impossible to maintain it, well, unless they're also certified developers. Okay, so now let's check our agenda for today. Day 4, as usually, you will have some items and a separate home assignment. So it's today it's tool writing, because starting from today, your home assignments is something that, well, data binding is still very important. It's going to be checked, but home assignments from now on are the items that are part of your fast track certification assignment. So agenda for today. We will create a new section in application. We will then install data binding tool, making the data binding process a little bit easier. We will be talking about workplaces customization and how to bind, though we will not set yacht section to Studio Workplace. I'm afraid I found a bug, but I will need to reproduce this. So as I was preparing for today, I've seen that there is an issue. This is a support ticket. Well, actually, it just so happens I found two bags in two different places. Binding tool also. We will talk about referential integrity. We will use default values on settings, and we will talk auto numbering. If you pass the no-code training, you already know how to work with auto numbering, but now we will see this from the perspective of database also. We will talk a little about list settings very shortly, inactivation feature, column colors and how they're stored, and we will primarily use this for the next item, which is something that is frequently considered a bug, and there is more a misconception, so we will address that. We will use these colors as an examples, and then we will start talking about client part, and hopefully we will even have time to create our first small code examples for front end. But we will have to also talk a lot about how Creatio is built as JavaScript complex app. Okay, so new section in Application Hub. I'm now going to create a yacht section. And usually you will see me working from configuration because I have more controls over here available. I have all packages here. I have more controls into where items go as I'm adding them to specific package. And again, usually for most scenarios, if it's not an SMB project, you would have multiple packages. Just see how many items we have, even though our solution is far, far, far from giving any business value at all. But one item that I cannot add from configuration is a section, because making something into a section, like our contacts or accounts, which essentially means that they are navigatable through this side panel on the left. And essentially, this button simply opens a list page of a section. Oh, sorry, a list page for the object contact, for the object account. It just called account. And this is just some system data, the fact that a contact is a section. So I cannot add this from configuration item. Instead, I will go to Application Hub now. My yacht app. Navigations and Sections tab. New Freedom UI section. I probably should at least give it a moment to get at least something close to yachts. Well, doesn't matter. Let's use this balloon and some color. Title for this new section is going to be yacht. And we have an option here to link this to an existing object. So I could have created yacht object first with more controls, because we will see that name column will be created for me, even though I will not specifically ask Creatio to create such a column. And if I need more control, I would go to configuration, create, or here to data models, create an object first, and then create a section that is linked to an existing object. But we don't have that object yet. Title, yacht, section code populated automatically as long as you use Latin characters. And also multi-language is supported here. So as I'm creating this new section, a new object, yacht, is registered. A new list page for that yacht object is registered. And a new form page, which is a one record processing page, single separate record processing page for yacht, is also created. So essentially, Creatio will employ some templates for yacht object, yacht entity, and for pages. So I'm expecting to have 3 schemas. We will see some complementary items also, but I'm expecting at least 3 schemas. One schema for the object, one schema for the client module schema, for the list page, and one schema for the client module form page. Let's give it a moment. So here is yacht section. Let's start with the user perspective. I will have to refresh my user browser tab where I'm testing. Okay, so what I was doing, I was refreshing this to find my application section. I didn't see it immediately. So I could have given some time because it does require, I could relog in, but what I did instead, not to wait, from inside of my application, I simply hit run application, which is forced this update. So now I have a new workplace, my application, and here is my new navigation item called section, also older Creatio language, we used to call them modules. There was a time where from user perspective, they were considered like a separated apps, but it became a little bit hard to align. What is a user app? What is an actual app? Like these items, they are definitely different because one Creatio application can obviously have many sections previously called modules, and maybe in some older articles you will see the word module still. So now I have my yacht navigation item for section. This is my list page. So I will see here rows for data. And if I hit new, I will see my yacht form page. If I switch to configuration and refresh this, these are my items that were created. So just a moment. Okay, so we have these 3 items. Here is the yacht list page, the yacht form page that we have just seen. And also this is a complementary item, which is a little bit redundant, yacht detail. This was necessary for Classic UI. Classic UI, even though officially not supported, is still something that is used by some customers. So to be on the safer side, When a new schema is created, this complementary item is added. We don't really need to study this, but technically this is what is necessary to add list of yards on some alien form page. But we don't need this really right now. What is necessary to us is these two items. So this is the front end. Also, here is the yard object. Here is the yard object. But on top of that, we have like some data items that had been created. And those data items, we don't really need to take care about them, but those data items, is what managing our section. So section is not a one separate component. For section to work properly and to be included into some workplaces, essentially these are records in some system tables. Records saying that yacht is not just any object. It is an object that, unlike traffic lights, that is only accessible through the lookup section, yacht is different because it has its own section. And if you go to its own section, you will go to the list page that was generated for this yacht. Now we're going to add a data binding tool so that before we proceed with our yacht customization, we will ease and fasten the process of data binding. And there is a very cool free of charge tool. I'm going to Application Hub, New Application, Marketplace Powered. No, sorry, binding. Data binding tool for Creatio. This is a very cool tool created by DevLabs. It is free of charge and probably will be part of most of your project. The only problem here is that it does require, it only works with .NET Framework. So if you're running local Linux, it will not work for you. But if you're using Creatio Cloud, you are using .NET Framework, so this tool is available to you. So again, most of the project, you will have access to it. We will see how this makes process of binding data easier. So it is available for both Postgre and MS SQL. Unfortunately, not Oracle, but Oracle is also an edge case, actually. Now, something that I only found yesterday, this is a problem with a current HTTP query. So how do you normally install? We've already installed Customer 360. I'm running my session. So because I have already multiple environments, I need to specify where do I want to install to. Where is my add environment manually? Next. Install. No, not fixed yet. So this is a very temporary issue. In fact, this is the first time I see it, but the problem is that service is unavailable because the HTTP query is constructed wrong. Currently, I've already reported this. Hopefully, this will be fixed soon. But the thing is that this is not the only way to install this. So there is a link to Marketplace from settings page. So big cogwheel, Marketplace will open Marketplace to me. I will still find my data binding. And instead of using this install, I will go to versions, and I can manually download a zip archive, or even maybe go to the source code if necessary, but I will use the latest version, and I will simply download this app as a zip archive locally. So now that it is downloaded, how did this happen? I don't know, sorry. I somehow have the same site outside of group. Maybe this is when I clicked run app. Edge did not recognize this as an action for the same group. So I'm back to my Creatio, dev environment. This is also dev. Application hub, new application. And this time, not from marketplace, but from file. Select file, just as I would do the delivery. And here is my data binding tool. And now it will install properly. This will take time. Some older applications that were not designed for separate assemblies will need to rebuild Creatio completely. So this is why we will have to be patient with this one. Though we will see that others, that is dependent on the type of application and its content. For example, the next item that we will install today in our application, called maintenance tools, is very, very small item, even though it is very useful. This data binding is only necessary to our dev environment. So we will have at least 3 environments always, dev, test, and prod. We only need this on dev environment because we need this in order to the restart is happening. I don't think this is the best approach, that even during the restart, system already offers to navigate us here, but evidently there is a harder to communicate this back to client. So we see this binding tool. And let's try to click run app again, see if this is what happened. No, this is not what happened. I'm still in the scope of devs. Okay. So now we have data binding tool. This is new to 8.3.2. Usually, I'm not sure that I'm super fan to this. We're not discussing mobile, creating of a mobile application during this course. Probably your feedback will also be necessary here. So usually you need to create mobile form and list pages separately. And we have some interesting improvements in mobile development. They are relying on the same frameworks, and they will be employing the tools that is very close to Freedom UI Designer. Well, it looks and feels exactly like Freedom UI Designer. It has its own limitations, but evidently, I'm not sure why, maybe I just didn't check this yesterday in my own prep environment, but evidently it creates automatically this list and form page when we create a new section. My problem with this is that, well, most of the solutions as of now don't use mobile. Most of Creatio solutions that are being currently deployed don't have this. So we are automatically generating items that are redundant. But that depends. Maybe you will build your own expertise on this. You will have your own experience. Maybe I'm missing something, and this is very useful to have it immediately for all mobile pages. Maybe every solution sooner or later should have its mobile replicant. But back to our regular Creatio. So now that we have data binding tool, we're ready for the next step. We're going to modify both the form page of a yacht and also the object of a yacht. And we have multiple options for this. So I can go to my advanced settings or here, click yacht form page, which opens the form page that we've seen in Freedom UI Designer. So this is something that you obviously know. If I go to yacht package, I will also see the yacht form page available. I'm really not a great fan of this, but I see my yacht form page, I see my yacht list page, I see my two new mobile pages. We can see that the structure is actually a bit more complex, so I will download this to file system. I should also share this with my co-developers using Git. So we will not do this step as frequently as we should, not to waste time, but I hope this is something that you understand. The frequency matters. So we have a lot of items since our last update. And now if I go to my Y3 Dev, TerraSoft Web App, configuration, package, user yacht, schemas, I will see a lot of items here. So for example, user yacht form page has a JavaScript file and some JSON files. This is necessary for creation managers, and manager is not a person, this is an entity, like an engine type entity. We have different managers to process different type of items and a couple of managers maintaining front end. So we have this properties, descriptor, metadata of form page, and the JavaScript file. So one item in configuration, multiple items in the file system. Sorry, one item in configuration of in configuration, I mean section configuration, because this is also configuration, but in file system they're represented in their full view. So I can open form page here, and that would navigate me to the exact same location. And something that people usually do, because it is a way easier way to access the same, is simply to open a record of a yacht. For example, when I'm trying to create new record, this still opens yacht form page. And on the top right-hand side, we have this teeny tiny cogwheel. But this needs some responsibility, because when I click this, it's the navigation to the exact same space. This is the Freedom UI Designer for my yacht form page, but I should always check where am I saving to. So, and this is on the page settings. If they're closed, you can also hit three dots over here, go to page settings, and check what is the package that I'm about to save to. Because in this scenario, I know for a fact, in this scenario, there will be much more complex solutions with multiple packages, with the same client schema being replaced multiple times. And you should always, if you use this approach, you should always check where am I saving to? Is this the place that I want to save this to? Now to customization. So this is a customization step. So this is not a coding step, but we will need to declare some page. This is going to be our sandbox to play. So we will not take care about how pretty the page is. It's going to be of a very simple, primitive design. So we're not going to work on cool features of Freedom UI Designer. by now. I do hope that you know most of them, but we're still forced to add some items to have something to play with to run tests. And I will need to open a cheat sheet. And at this point, your faces will be covered. So if you want to raise a hand, I won't see this. So please, or write in chat. For some time, I won't see this. So please just unmute yourself if you will have questions for the next couple of moments. Okay, so we will be adding some items here. So what we need, we already have a name, and this comes from the template. Sorry, a moment. We already have a name. This comes from the template. And now we will be adding some new items. Next one is going to be length of our yacht. And this here is the column code of the object. So just to make sure we're on the same page here, Freedom UI Designer allows you to simultaneously make changes to front end and the back end. On the front end, we are creating a field and everything that is related to it. So we have a control, we have a data source for this, we have some intermediate and object, JavaScript object that will be maintaining the connection between control and data. So we're covering front end, but also as we save this new field of a page, Creatio will add the same column to create corresponding Creatio object. So our user yacht object will also be modified, and it will have a new column with this code. User lengths. And we always need to confirm this. This is a very important step. So we need to confirm this because there is a joke that Creatio is not Deletio. It is very hard to delete, modify existing codes because of the complexity of the structure, because how it is represented in many, many, many items from here. So we say that we have our front end, which is easily modified. We have our backend logical, and we have our database. But this doesn't mean that you only need to modify this, would need to modify this item in two places. Hopefully now you know that there is much more behind every schema that appears at the first glance. And deleting data sources or modifying their code is a bad idea. Okay, so code user lengths, data format integer, copy this value when copying records. Well, pretty self-explanatory. You copy this record, length value goes with it. So we're not talking about appearance at all here during this course. Now, element code is actually important as long as we are planning to make any modifications to the page using some JavaScript coding, and we do. And this is very frequently overlooked by no-code creators, but this is okay. If you will need to add any like front-end logic to this field just before you jump into the source code, because you will see these items a lot in source code because of people usually overlook this. You can at any time, unlike with the code of the column of the object, this can be modified easily. So you would just change this to lengths to make it easier to find in source code, and that's it. So this is the element code, meaning the element of the page, and this is the code of the object column. So lengths. Sorry. Now price, next number will go below name. We'll call this price. This is a title, which is also a localizable string. Code, obviously, letting all only. Price per day. And second time I'm using a comma. So hopefully, well, maybe not a given. In code, we do not use any special characters at all. I have a very small technical issue. I need to change power source. I will be out for 30 seconds. Sorry. Do you copy? Can you please confirm that you can hear me and my screen is visible to you?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so code of our object column is going to be prefix price, no special characters. We're using Pascal casing. Here, format for price integer will not work, so it's going to be decimal, 2 digits after point. And element code, also price. It has to be unique, obviously, on the page source code. It has to be unique. As long as it's unique, you're okay. Next we have our captain. Captain is a selection from context table. So this means this is a lookup, and to create lookups, we're using drop downs here. So next one is a drop down, captain. Table to select a contact from already exists. This is a contact, so this is our lookup source, contact. And element code is also captain. Next one, crew count, and I will go a little bit faster from now on because I think the things that I wanted to cover I already did. So crew count, code, also crew count. This is going to be an integer. Element code, also crew count. Next one is passengers count, another integer. No special characters. Here, special characters are okay in the element code. Next one is going to be a new lookup. So previously we created a traffic light from object with more controllable approach. We first introduced a new object that was based on a base lookup. With this approach, it was necessary to us to then go to lookups, register it as a lookup so we can work it, and also bind the fact that this is a lookup. With Freedom UI Designer, it works differently. So we don't have drive types. So our yacht can be powered by, can be a power yacht. It can be powered by wind, so a sail yacht, and it can be powered by steam. So this is going to be a new selection. We will call this drive type. And code is prefix drive type. And same for the element code. Now, so table that would store different drive types doesn't exist yet. So we hit this plus to register a new lookup that we will call yacht drive types. Name also will include yacht, so it's easier to navigate, but naming convention is obviously up to you. So I expect new object to be registered, being available as a lookup, and even one of the data files to be created. So drive type, and same for the status. So this is our yacht status. Sorry, status. Code prefix status. Element code status. Lookup doesn't exist yet. So this is yacht statuses. See. For both, we should disable adding new values, but in fact, this adding new values also value as a link. It will only work if that entity, that object, has a form page. So neither drive type or status will have their own form page like our yacht does. We will only modify them using lookup sections, just like we did with traffic lights. So it will not make the difference in the scope of this application, but it is actually safer to disable them because sometimes in time, when these entities become more complex, and you maybe create some complex integrations, and so you have some intermediate objects, and you have some complex integrations, and you have a lot of different columns for drive types and statuses. In fact, today we will add a new one to status. So for your own convenience, because how easy it is to create a page, you will be creating some pages that will be only seen by you yourself, just for your own convenience, and users will never see them. And when that happens, this will take effect. Something that is used as a lookup source, if a user clicks them, they will open that page that you only meant for yourself. And they will be actually able to add a new value to statuses, which is something that only you should control. And with this link, they will be able to see that page that you have created. So it's safer to deactivate, even though it will not have an immediate effect. Next, status, comment and manager, only two left. So comment is going to be a simple text, title comment. Confirm. It's going to be 250 characters text, yes. And it is important to make it multi-line text so that we can break the line when the text doesn't fit the available widths to a user. And that can be different depending on their zooming and their screen size and so on. And final dropdown is manager. And manager is also a person, but this is our employee, so it can be contact, but what is often overlooked is an employee. So maybe we're not going to use this in this scenario, but please consider this as well, because our own employees as entities are usually very different from other contacts, like our customers, our partners, our suppliers, who are also contacts. Employees will have a lot of columns that are only relevant to our own employees. And so if you overdo the contact object, which is already very complex as it is, maybe this is not the best approach. So consider using employees as well. They have organizational units. They can be used in business processes. They're actually a cool entity. But we will use contact because this is what people usually choose. And maybe we will use this as a selection window just to have a difference from contact. And maybe captain, well, this is irrelevant, but just to check the difference, we will not display captain value as a link. Manager will be a link, just to see the difference. Okay, and element code for the manager is manager. And that's it. Let's save this. It will take some extra time because of the multiple entities being updated simultaneously. I will have to refresh my user browser tab because I see the cached version of my page. And so now I have my page available to me. And for captain, who is a contact, I can select a captain. And as you can see, I cannot click on Andrew Baker. For manager, because we've chosen that this is not a drop-down list, but rather a selection window, it will look a bit different. So no drop-down here. Instead, I see this magnifying glass and I open the selection window. And maybe Andrew Baker, we don't have many contacts here, is also a person, but this one is different. It is a link. For our drive type and statuses, we don't have any data for them, but actually some cool features did appear. So back to our configuration, and I will refresh this. And I see now that we have yacht drive types, a new object, and a new data table also, and yacht statuses. But also what is cool about the Freedom UI Designer is that I will also see these two new data files that register them to a lookup. So the fact that they are lookups will also migrate to targeted environment. And I also don't need to register them manually. If I go to lookups, I will see my status and drive types already registered, but they don't have any values yet. So let's add those values. For statuses, status is going to be operational. Okay, let's add one more item maybe that I wanted to also test with traffic lights, but maybe this will make more sense. Let's go to statuses object that already exists, and we will add a new column here, column for order of display. Order, new integer. We've updated our statuses object. just to be on the safe side, because I already opened that as a page. Operation. We will change fields to display in this lookup. I need name of the lookup, and I also need order of the lookup, just like we did with traffic lights. So first to appear should be operation node. Second one is going to be in maintenance. And final one is going to be condemned or dead ship. So first to appear operational, second maintenance, and the last choice is dead ship. And now, if I close this, I see this new bind lookup. I don't need this for my statuses because we've seen that they are already bound. Well, I can try bind lookup and say that I have two new items. So what are these items? These are information that this object should be available in lookup section. And if I select them, I will choose the destination for binding. I try to save, and this error message says, well, hey, this information already exists. And we've seen this. Indeed, it does. So these two items are already bound. But the data of the statuses themselves is not bound because it wasn't present. I only have just registered the object itself. So these items are not present. So I need to bind, and I want to bind all data. Was bound successfully, but this is actually, we need to take extra care. We will have to see the details because first I want to check all three records are bound. Perfect. Column settings, and this is the important item that we've seen before. So no force update. If I change a name of a status in development environment, it will not arrive to target environment. So I want to force update name and maybe even order. So I will add a new column. Sorry, order already here. So no need to add. And I will force update order also. Now I can save this. So no need to go back and forth to configuration and back. As soon as I've created a new lookup, I should bind this. And I will do the same for drive types. Our drive types are going to be power yacht, then sail, and then steam. Bind data, bind all or select data. We will use bind all. View details. Again, I want to force update my name. All three records are bound, save, perfect, much easier to bind with this tool. Now I will create my first yacht. I have this new section called My Applications. I'll open yacht, new, name, lengths. No, maybe something more like this. Price is going to be something high. Crew count, maybe something like this. Passengers count. Captain. I'll make supervisor a captain. Manager is going to be Andrew. Drive type steam. Status dead ship. Save. Okay, so now we have something to play with. And yeah, maybe before we go for a break, one more thing about these references, just to see them in how they look in database. So I will open my user yacht table. There it is. And here we have columns, and we will see multiple keys. So this key, we have some keys looking, one key will be looking to the left, the one that is now selected, which is ID, primary key, and unique identifier. None of them are nullable. Instead, we have, if ID isn't present, we have a GUID empty. And then we see, unfortunately, I cannot show your cursor in this mode. And then we see here at the very bottom, user manager, and you see the extension ID in the end. This is a foreign key. User manager ID is that lookup. So as our object instantiated, we can have access to key value pair. This is how we extract the display name, so that in our captain, we don't see the foreign key, but we see the name of the captain. This is the contact name, supervisor. Same for the manager. Same for the drive type and status. But in database, what is actually stored is just their IDs. So here is user manager ID, in our case, Andrew Baker. So in database, what is stored here, but because of the displayed value logic, users will actually see the name, and on UI, we have even logic to make this clickable so we can navigate to the Andrew Baker record. And what system also did, it added, this is a convention to work with these IDs, it added the ID suffix to this key. And also we have these keys over here. So what it says that we need to protect referential integrity, which means that when user, so this is what we see here, is the ID of the entity. So this ID is the ID of the contact, ID of the status, drive type, and manager. 4 different keys. By default, data integrity is protected. What it means is if I am to select a status, I should only select from IDs that are in the yacht statuses table. And it is protected by default. But a cool example, for example, is if I go to yacht object, here is my status that we used, and we have this Boolean do not control integrity. So by default, it is false, which means that we do control integrity. So when user selects a status, they can only select from statuses table. But if we go to an inherited created by column, which is also a reference to a contact, we see this activated. This is something that Creatio developers decided to do because created by and modified by are 2 references to contact that exist to almost every object in Creatio. And even in out of the box completely, ooh, I didn't see this. Oh. I'll need to investigate. This is a new feature. I don't think this is even documented. don't know how this is useful, but yeah, sorry for this off top. So we have over 1,000 different tables already. Most of them, almost every one of them, have these columns. So if integrity would be controlled with every instance of all these entities, then it will create an extra load for the system. So to optimize performance, integrity for modified by and created by is not controlled, which means that if we would allow user to modify and select values for these two columns, technically a user in that scenario would be able to say use an ID of a yacht drive type for value for created by, because integrity is not controlled. But the thing is that these two columns are managed by system itself, mostly by current user session. So users are not affecting these values, so the integrity control is not necessary. Okay, then, so we are 16 minutes in. Will you be okay if we will have 10 minutes break today? Guys? Yeah? Thank you so much for the feedback. Okay, now, so I have 17 minutes on my clock. Let's get back to it at 27 minutes. See you in 10? Okay, so next we're going to set up some default values based on system settings. And this means, which is calls to a very simple step, really, but this calls for another common mistake. So for maybe let's start with manager. Manager is going to be simpler, a reference to the contact object, and the default value for manager is going to rely on a system variable. That system variable is going to be current user contact. Make sure not to use the current user, because users are, you probably know this already, but this is sysadmin unit called system administration object, which is a title. The code for the table and actual entity is sysadmin unit that stores both users and organizational and roles, organizational and functional. And so it also, referential integrity is active, so you cannot populate a contact with a user. But users are connected to contacts. So this is a one-to-one connection. One user will have one contact behind them. So with system variable, system will be able to extract from current user session information, what is the ID of the current user, and through that, what is the ID of the contact behind that user. And that contact will populate our manager. And this is, well, fail-safe. But if we go to status, and we will set a default value to status, this now becomes more complex. So this is relying to a constant. We want a new, when you register a new yacht, it immediately become an operational yacht as a constant. So what this means now is foreign keys, hopefully understand that we are populated, we are hard coding into the constructor of a yacht, we are hard coding an ID value for status when a yacht is instantiated, which means that if we wouldn't bind that status upon delivery, you wouldn't even be able to create a new yacht, because you will see the problem with references, because your target environment simply doesn't have this value. So this is something also to remember. We can easily test this. I already have quite a few items here. So to the runtime, no need to refresh here. Status, operational, manager, current user contact, supervisor. Perfect. Now for the statuses, we see that ship comes first because it's in alphabetical order. So D alphabetically comes before I, and that comes before O. I want it different order. I want operational to come first, and we already have a column that allows us to do this. So I'm clicking tiny cogwheel to go to designer, status field, and a new property that appeared only in 831 is a sort by column. And we have here ascending, descending orders. We will sort by order. Let's save this. This order is a JavaScript logic, so we will need to refresh to see this operational. And now our statuses go as we want them, operational, in maintenance, dead ship. The only limitation to this is only possible for, as of now at least, for pages that have a data source. So our page has a yacht entity for its data source. And what it means that if you create a page for a business process, a page that doesn't rely on data source, but instead only employs page parameters, then if one of that parameters will be relying on a lookup value, the sort by will not work, at least for now, but probably something that might be addressed a little later. But a cool small feature that was added. Now, another item here is a very small also demo for the list settings. So I expect that most of you know how, or probably all of you know how to modify lists, add new columns, change them, and how to apply this modification so they work for all employees. But we need to be careful with one of the operation that I think was initially added for delegation of this opportunity. So we can override current settings for all users, which will set this to default for all users. But I think that this operation should only be used if you intend to delegate it, not by system designers, system administrators, no-code creators, developers. The reason why is because how this is used. So we have a special data table, user profile, and we have in that data the value for like all user preferences. So this what it does. What it means is the following. Say we have two developers that are working on the same list page, and they are setting default value for that list page so that user can return to it. Like if user changes something, they can also always go and restore to those default values. So this is our default as it was. Now, if I go to the design time of this page, so now I again click tiny cogwheel, but this time I'm at the list page of the yacht. So I'm opening list page in Designer. And usually I would do that default over here. I don't need created on, I don't need created by, name makes sense. And I will add some more columns. Price per days, current status, manager, I think already there. Captain also makes sense. Maybe lengths, that will be enough. And I'll save this. I will refresh user browser tab. If it did not apply, it's not a glitch. I think that this logic is being reprocessed because maybe people complained, but it wasn't a glitch if it did not apply. The thing is, if you sort, for example, as a user, system already memorizes this as your preferences. So now there is a record in user profile, and this is why they will not apply immediately even after you refresh. You will have to restore default settings and then you will see them. So now as a developer, I'm pleased with my saying I had a task. Now I set my values to default. Now a colleague of mine who obtained later similar task said that no, by default, maybe length should comes first, then price, and then please also add what? Drive type. Okay. And add drive type. And then they, instead of doing this in design time like I did, they will use this action, override current settings for all users. For users, this will work. Now, user enters the session, they make their own modifications, maybe to export this to Excel, and they need to restore. So they go back to the restore action, and they will see this version, the second version. Problem is, this second version is not stored in the configuration of the list page. It is stored as the data of all user preferences, which means that if I go to design time, I will not see the second version. I will only see the first version. So as you see, drive type is not present, order is different. So when the first developer returns to make further modification, another problem arrives. So for example, now we said that price is not necessary for default view of this list. I will save this. I will refresh user browser tab. And if I try to restore to default, I will not see this modification. So the page configuration now, the list settings on the page configuration now become irrelevant. So when do we need this? Maybe if you want to delegate this, which would be a system operation. An operation to list setup for all users. So what it allows, for example, if you have some team leads, you definitely don't want them to access Freedom UI Designer, but you also might want them not to bother you with tasks like change my default list settings. So then you would go to this operation and you will include those team leaders into people to whom this operation is allowed. Obviously, an operation has to be bound, and you are bounding just like with system settings, two items. The header of system operation, if it's a new one, this one exists, so you don't need this for this scenario, it already bound. But if you create your own operation, you need to bound the header and the user in operation. In this scenario, we only need user in operation to be bound. But then what it would allow, now those team leaders, they will have this action. And in that scenario, you simply don't care about how this looks in design time. You know that users take care of this, not you, not your responsibility. Okay. Now, another item, which is record inactive feature. So as of now, we have Steam drive type as an option, and what will come a frequent task is that some of the lookup values will will be out of date. So you will no longer necessarily need them. So drive type steam is an outdated drive type. We don't want new yachts to be created or for, oh, sorry. Oh, okay, let's do this and then for auto numbering. So you don't want new yachts to be created with this drive type. So hopefully you know that you can do this also with business rule that can be applied to objects. If not, we will have some intro through business rules. I understand that not everyone went through the full-fledged guided no-code learning. Some of you just educated yourself. So we will talk about business rules a little, but business rules will allow you to prevent user from selecting Steam, but you can still run some business processes where that can be selected as a result of business process logic. So we have an alternative to this to deactivate a record, which means that historical records will still store these values. You can still use them in filters, but there is no other usage for those records. And this is a rare occasion where we will have a hidden column, because usually everything is open source and you will see all the columns. So back to configuration. And in my configuration, I want to find my drive types. And on the object level, under behavior settings, we will allow record deactivation. Save and publish. And now, even if I refresh this page, it will never appear actually, and go to columns, I will see the same set of columns that we had before. Nothing had been added visually here to the drive types. But actually, if I go if I go to my database now, I will see a new column, record inactive. So I have my Power Yacht, my Sail, my Steam, and they all have now a value for records inactive Boolean, and it is now set to 0. I will still see this in my environment, but only in lookup section, because this was primarily designed for lookup section. So for lookups, for those records, for those tables that we use as lookups values only, without their own pages, etc. So back to lookup section, I will open my statuses, view, select fields to display, plus, and is active? No. Sorry, not statuses. Pardon me. It's a drive type. We're deprecating a drive type Steam. Inactive, no. And we will set Steam to true. Back to our yachts. So as we can see, Titanic still has this Steam. We can still use this for filtering, but if I try to create a new one, Steam is no longer available to you. So the activation works as expected. Now, another item is auto numbering that can be misinterpreted and confused. So I'm opening again Yacht Designer, and I will introduce a new field to the page and a new column to the object. Type is auto number. They will call this yacht number. Code prefix number. Element code number. So this is a text field that is using a sequence to auto-populate its value. So prefix is going to be y dash and number after digits, say 4. And we will make it this read only, and we'll save this. Two things to cover here, really brief. So first misconception is, I'll need to refresh this, is this works only one way. Now, why do we need this in the first place? We need this when we need unique values for our numbers, but we have a lot of people working with the same entity, which happens all the time. So what I could have done instead, I could have created a business process that would, upon creation of a record, would count number of existing records and add a new number. And this would work perfectly. Only if I operate on the event after the record is created. But in real life scenario, a lot of such processes will either have user interaction or maybe through signals communicate with other processes. So what I'm saying, and they usually execute slower comparing to some system actions. So it is possible to create duplicates depending on the design of business process. So if we have 1,000 people simultaneously adding records to an entity, the safer way is to use auto-numbering. But how it works, we need to understand. If I click new, I see that number is 2. This is not because of Titanic. It is not applied retrospectively. Titanic doesn't have a number. This is because I already tried to create a new record and I dismissed that action. And I will do this again. And now the number is 3. I will dismiss this. I will do this again, and now number is 4. Because how it is done is through a special sequence. There it is, our database, programmability, and we have sequences. And we already have some few sequences available here. Now this one is set to 16, one of them is set to 4. So this is a current value, which means that when user takes this action to add, someone who just joined, when user uses this action to add, what happens is we are immediately sending a very super fast query to increase a sequence, and that's it. A very super fast query, but it only works one way. From Creatio perspective, it is not possible to modify this sequence. Which one is this, I wonder? Not this one, this one. This is our sequence. We are currently at 5 in our yachts. So if I close this and try again, we are at 6. And at this time, this sequence also changed to 6. And there is no way to decrease this number unless you write a special SQL script to your database to modify it. But do you really need this? No. So you need to consider the application. If it is important that they are unique, then auto-numbering works. If they need to represent some real-life hard-copied number, like maybe your invoices have hard copies that are numbered with watermarks, then you will be missing on some numbers. Obviously, I'm working with an edge case, like why would I do this so many times, dismiss, but users will be dismissing and you will be skipping numbers. So this is something that is also frequently misunderstood. This is not a bug, this is a feature. It's just the prevention of duplicates. But if you don't want this, if you less care about uniqueness and more about them being orderly sequenced, then consider business process instead. but make sure that your business process for auto-numbering is separated from record life cycle, because that becomes a different problem altogether. What I'm saying is, if you want to create such a process, make it start after the record is created. So it already happened. A record is created. It doesn't have a number. You read the current number records of the database, and you immediately assign the number and you exit. If you add more steps here, then it is likely to create duplicates. Worth yet, if you add some user actions, or if you add some subroutines, or if you make this part of the more complex life cycle of your record, you will very likely create duplicates, and with user action, you will most likely create duplicates. But you will not skip numbers with this approach. Another thing that is often misunderstood is this protection. So for number, we made it read only. This is a logic that works on a specific yacht form page. So if I try to go to an existing record, this protection works. But if I am allowing access to modification of the number column of my object of this in multiple ways, so not only on the yacht form page, that I should expect that this is still available for modification. This is not an object logic. This is front-end logic for a specific client module. So what this means, if I try to use what is available by default, I personally don't think this is too useful. I think this is useful for details that don't need their own pages, but by default, we allow data adding and editing in the list. So let's create a new one. A new yacht. And we will save this. And we will add number. And we see that number was auto-assigned. So this new yacht has its number. But I can still change this, because that protection is only on the page. So you need to take care of it. You either create a business rule that will work on object level and will disallow this modification, or if this data, if yacht is used as data source for multiple pages, make sure to address that on all the pages. So if you don't want to apply this rule, which I think is the best approach on an object level. What I don't recommend, though, is to address this through object permissions. So what I don't recommend is to address this through the column access rights. This is what I don't recommend. Number. So making this access level deny editing. So permit reading only will achieve the same. So all employees are only allowed to read number, but the execution of this is not resource savvy. Sorry, I'm trying this as a supervisor. Of course, as a supervisor, this test wouldn't work, because as a supervisor, I have special operation edit any data, which simply ignores it. So I won't be able to demonstrate this, but this will work for all employees. But supervisor, we're not going to waste time to create new people to test this. But the way this performs is okay for smaller solutions. For large solutions, for big data, you're making this more complex during instantiation of the object, so it can work. It can be trickier, it doesn't have a great impact, but it still does have impact. And also it doesn't show to users that they shouldn't be allowed. User sees that if they like able to allow it, and only when they save data, it says you're not allowed to edit this column, which is doesn't work as good as this kind of protection where it is evident that I shouldn't even try. Okay. Next one, column colors and problems with restart. Column colors. So we're going to add a new column to our maybe for status. We will colorize our statuses so it looks prettier. They are more distinctive one from another. And this will require a new column. So let's go to our configuration. Find our statuses. And we have a special property here, color. So what we need to do, we need to introduce a new column to this object that will store a hex code for a color for a specific status. Actually, what I'm doing is not correct because at this moment, I made so many changes that I should have already shared this with my code developers, and I should have already make the delivery. We're just saving time today, but I hope that you don't take this as a for recommendation, because just a minute, I need to log in on the different credentials. So the operations that we were running yesterday, we should have done that by now, at least once. We're doing a lot of items without properly testing them in test environment, without sharing, and this is not a best approach. But we're saving a lot of time during this scenario. So now we are adding a new column to save color value. So that would be columns. We already have order, which is a unique column that did not come from parent base lookup, so it wasn't inherited from this. We will add a new one, data type other, color. And just to make this more distinctive, we will use the original spelling so that we understand what is the property and what is the column name title. So we'll save and publish this. Oh, sorry, not done. It's there. You don't need to do this in 2 steps. It will be immediately available. It's just an old habit. And I wonder where my supervisor button is. Yeah, I'm sorry for the off top. There was this unique, unexpectedly some feature that maybe is not documented, or maybe I missed this in change logs, but I don't see it now. So there's some inconsistency, or maybe I just don't understand where it should be, when it should appear. Okay, so color, which is the setting, color with you, which is the name of the column that will store that. So this configuration will allow Creatio to work with those colors. So now to Studio. Lookups, statuses, and we will add that new color column. Now we need some values. For colors. So we'll find some colors online. We have three statuses, so I will use this palette. This is going to be dead ship, operational, and in maintenance. Maintenance probably should be something like this. Okay, so operational is going to be blue. Maintenance is going to be this. And dead ship is going to be this. Now, when you're working with the hex codes, depending on where you work with them, the application might differ. If I refresh this and go to yacht page, I can already test. And well, before I do any of that, I should bind this, obviously. But there is one thing that I wanted to showcase that looks like a bug. So now to my applications, yacht. First problem, statuses here are not colorized, but if I try to change this, I will see colors applied. And another thing that you will see that the colors are faded. They are not exactly your choice, but this is only in this scenario. So Creatio does do this fading down so that you end up with styles that are generally considered user-friendly. But this is not applied everywhere because when you're colorizing, for example, containers, where you can also use hex code, you don't have that type of protection. You can create something very aggressive, which you definitely shouldn't, but it is possible. So not a good user choice, obviously. So now to the problem. So I should have done this immediately. At the moment when I have created this, I want to bind. Now our status is actually bound, but let's try to bind all data, view details. This time it is recognized that we have a new column, so binding should maybe added. And we have color. And we will force update color and name. Why didn't we do this immediately? Let's just be careful. I will cancel this operation. I will cancel this operation. And I'm already starting to see the misbehavior that I was mentioning. But I want to simply check my data file because this is a problem. Drive types, name force update, okay. And statuses, values. It's either part of the bug that I'm about to, not the bug, just behavior that I will demonstrate, or maybe I simply forgot this. But this is what we were doing. I think I didn't because we've done this one after another. So name of the statuses should be updated. Yeah, we were starting to see this problems here, like color pass and so on and so forth. So let's try to recreate this. And we will fix this with a restart, but let's try to do this again. View details. Just want to make sure this is the same data file. Name bound, color force updated. Bound data now seems empty, which it is not. And yeah, so I think this is enough to see that something is going wrong. And this is not necessarily because of you did something wrong. This is merely an example when these items can come to become a problem, because with this color operation, we are writing modification into a lot of source of truth columns. And because of the many layers of the application, it does require time. So for no coders, they usually don't care about this because they do something else. and then the time, they simply just know that, well, it will apply in time, but they don't, but you need to bind this immediately. If you want to see that this is bound immediately properly. And now we are seeing some weird stuff like, do we, for example, did we forget to bind records? Because we know we didn't, and what happened with force update? The problem is that there are some the system is not now properly reading from different uh, data tables, and it will in time because once in a while the system will perform restart, but we need to force one. So the easiest way to perform restart is to recompile our creation, but this is the most time expensive way. Another one is to restart our application pool, which also is time consuming. And better yet, we will install another tool that is not only useful in your development environment, but also in your test and prod environment. So once again, we're going to Application Hub, New Application, Marketplace Powered. Maintenance tools for Creatio. It's going to install really fast because this application is actually just some tiny interface changes. Creatio already have some services that do multiple items, including restart that we now need. So the service is present, but for whatever reason, Creatio developers decided not to include this immediately into interface. And this application that we have just loaded simply fixes that. I might need to relog in. No. So settings page now has clear Redis cache and restart application. And this is what we need to restart the application. And this will take around 20, 30 seconds. We are restarting our application, and we will see if this helps. Now let's open our configuration. Data bound files, and here are our statuses values. So first, let's check here. Bound data is not empty. The records are in fact bound. If we go to column settings, we will see that now we have both caption and the table column name properly displayed here. And now we can apply force update to both color, name, and maybe order also. So let's save this. And now our status is properly bound. Moreover, if we go now to the yacht section, my applications yacht, we will see that they were colored also. Now to sections management. Let me consider, maybe I can move few items around because the next topic is pretty heavy, and I don't want to split the explanation. I will need at least 20 minutes. Yeah, probably for tomorrow. Okay. Workplace setup. Workplace setup also might require binding. Now there is a small bug here. Now what I wanted to do is to add a yacht section over here. But I have a problem with this. So I will need to recreate this on cloud environments and different builds before I can properly report this. This is actually a release build. But is it? No, this is a recommended demo build. So maybe this is a pre-release build. Maybe this is a build issue, or maybe we do have a bug. So, but I will need to recreate. Maybe it's an environmental issue, but I tried this on the environment that I use for preparations. But we can still discuss how to bind these items. So the thing is that the information about that something is a section, also the information about workplace and information to whom this workplace should be available, all data and all can be bound and should be bound. So two workplaces set up, and maybe I will change some changes to Studio. Maybe better yet, if I create a new workplace, and here it is important to properly select one. We are creating a general workplace because the other three will affect how it works. These are designed for cheap Creatio version that is not meant for usually not meant for our company employees and only offers limited access. If we want full access to Creatio, we need the proper licenses then. And from the perspective of workplaces, that would be a general workplace. We'll call it training. Sections in there are going to be accounts. And you see we have two accounts. We will only need one Freedom UI account. And also contact. Also Freedom UI contact. And our yacht, which is absent, unfortunately. Sorry, let's return contact. And account. Now, important thing is how we manage user groups. General recommendation that you only bind roles and users that you use in business processes as direct references through IDs of those roles and users. So what I'm saying is usual recommendation, and Creatio has a technology to actually try to prevent it, which can be overcome. If you will be interested, we will look into that if we will have time. I will show that, but by default, Creatio prevents you from delivering your organizational role and functional roles and users, but you can still bind them and deliver anyway. So now how this affects us. In this scenario, I don't really like the binding tool because it was done by a third party, a company that has their own procedures and approaches and preferences. And they, for themselves, decided that they will bind everything, including users to whom this new workplace will be available. So they, just like with system settings, we need to bind multiple items. We bind a header of a workplace. We bind records of sections that are bound to this header by its ID. And then the third item, we bind users who are allowed to this section. So 3 items to be created, which can be an approach only if you will be binding roles, but this is not an easy task to do. So instead, we're going to bind this manually. So back to our configuration, data items, object, system, workplace, bound data, and Here is our training workplace. So this is our header. And we have position here. Position of a workplace that can be modified. 18 seems wrong, but it will put this at the end. Also, what we can do is to pre-configure the positionings of the contacts and accounts, well, essentially the order in which they will appear. Maybe we will add just one more to showcase this feed. And say I want accounts to go first, contacts go next, and only then feed. And I can still select here fields that I want to display. And the new field that I will show is the order field. Position, sorry, not order, position. And we will see that they are actually having their position. By default, Creatio simply calculates the number of sections registered altogether anywhere, add some extra on top, and create these indexes. But these are actually indexes, so this is maybe not the best approach, but these are the indexes that are only relevant to a specific section, not through the system. So if I move accounts, I will see them corrected to 0, 1, 2. So what I'm saying is if you want this specific order, which usually you do, if you want to save the specific order of your sections to appear, I will need to relog in to see this. For supervisor, this position has also needs also to be bound. So I can save this. And another item, add data object. Okay, so admin unit in workplace is about users group to whom we should allow this. But what we need, probably section. No, module then. Sysmodule detail or sysmodule. We can see by the data type. Has action? No. Yes. It just has some items from classic UI. Yeah. This is the proper one. System module. And we need to, well, we don't need to bind our contact, but yeah, essentially we can bind this. And also having this bind tool can be also useful if I'm not really sure which one I want. So I can, it wouldn't allow me because we've just bound one. But yeah, I know for a fact now. I just wanted to show that maybe we can track how they're called. So this is how I would bound my yacht. And this is a section object. It can be connected to multiple records and connected to multiple workplaces records. Some of these columns are irrelevant because they are related to the classic UI modules. So you need to connect both. Okay, hope this makes sense. Now we still have 9 minutes, but I don't really have anything to fit into 9 minutes because the next item is actually to explain Creatio JavaScript app, how it operates, and we do need, I'd say, just at least 20 minutes for theoretical part only, probably more than 20. So I think that we will cut short today. Your home assignment. Your home assignment, day 4. So first, everything that essentially you will need to recreate what you've seen today. But what is important and will be checked that you will bind everything but the workplace. You don't need to maintain your workplace. There is a bug. So maybe you will be able to, what I want you to at least try, maybe go to Studio Workplace and try to add yacht section there. If it works, that I will know for a fact that this is an environmental issue. It is possible, depending on the exact time when you extracted your trial environment, that you have a different build. That would be helpful to me. From my side, I will try to recreate and report. So workplace setup, simply ignore everything but workplace setup. You will need to recreate in your environment, and everything that you do has to be properly bound. You are now starting working on your fast track assignment, and this is going to be checked if everything is bound properly. So if few items have to be bound, make sure that they're all bound. Sorry, this is irrelevant. So build yacht, same columns as I did. You can name them something differently. Your layout is not important. If you will have time and energy and you want to build a pretty page, unlike me, feel free to do that. Names can be different. Just keep in mind that we will use those names when we will use some JavaScript examples. So you will have to address that. Keep that in mind. And sorry, this travels to tomorrow. This we will not do. So this is your home assignment for today. And thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed this, and see you tomorrow, same place, same time. If you have questions, feel free to stay. If not,